horrible experience. The other week, there was some coffee sitting by my nightstand, or not nightstand, it's an end table. It's not a night thing because it's not where I go at night. And I was like, I'll just drink this coffee. I'm getting sick thinking about it. And I drank it. It's like, yeah, there was a dead fly in it. Ugh. That ruined my day. Well, today there was some coffee sitting by my nightstand. And I was like, I'm not doing that again. I poured it from one cup to another. I didn't see anything in it. I'm like, I'm still not doing that again. And then right before the live stream, I'm like, I need some coffee. This is all there is. And I go and I look and I see like a piece of wood chip or something. And I look a little closer. No, it's another dead fly. I was this close to doing it again. Thankfully, there was a tiny bit of coffee left in my wife's cup. So I get to teach in style today. Fly-free coffee. It's the best. All right. Mark chapter 15. Ooh, yes, verse 6. Now, at the feast, he was accustomed to releasing one prisoner to them, whomever they requested. And there was one named Barabbas, who was chained with his fellow rebels, for they had committed murder in the rebellion. Then the multitude, crying out, began to ask him to do just as he has always done for them. And Pilate answered them, saying, "Do you want me to release you, the king of the Jews?" For he knew that the chief priests had handed him over because of envy. So he knew why they were into this. But the chief priests stirred up the crowd so that he should rather release Barabbas to them. Pilate answered and said to them again, "What then do you want me to do with him who is you call the king of the Jews?" So they cried, "Crucify him." Pilate said to them, "Why? What evil has he done?" But they cried out all the more, "Crucify him." So Pilate, wanting to gratify the crowd, released Barabbas to them, and he delivered Jesus, after he had scourged him, to be crucified. So here we have the story of Barabbas. Now, this man was a rebel, and he was a murderer. Likely a hardened criminal. Maybe not. The Passion of the Christ, Mel Gibson's work, had a lot of great stuff in it. They portrayed Barabbas as this kind of, really out there and, and kind of a guy. And I don't know. There were a lot of Jews who revolted against Rome and who hated the oppression that they were facing. And they fought against Rome. And we don't really know the character of this guy. In fact, he could have been a very humble guy who fought for what he thought was right. But now he's facing the consequences of his actions. Death row. Typically, the Roman soldiers wouldn't waste a whole lot of time working on building you your own cross. If it was a situation where you were in prison and awaiting crucifixion, quite often they would provide you with the lumber and they'd force you to build your own cross. How's that? So you're the one having to strip things down and make some notches or whatever, and however to get the thing to fit together in piece. And so it's just an interesting image. We don't know if that's the way it went with Barabbas, but it paints a picture that at least helps me understand something a little better. Because if Barabbas was there, making his own cross, right, that it was there for him to be crucified on, and then all of a sudden, what did he do? He did nothing. He just sat in prison where he belonged. But all of a sudden he's told, "You're set free." And why? Because someone else is going to take your cross. And Jesus is going to carry your cross now. The cross that you built and you deserve, well, now Jesus is the one taking it. And it's all of our stories, right? I mean, this simple idea that Jesus took our cross that we were supposed to bear. Jesus took our punishment that we were supposed to receive. And so there's this beautiful picture in Barabbas. I don't need to draw it out more. I don't need to extend this longer than it needs to be. But I will say that when we look at Pontius Pilate again, because it does just kind of say it, fairly briefly there, that Pilate, wanting to gratify the crowd, he released Barabbas. Now in woohoo, there we go. In which gospel am I looking for? Hand it over to Pontius Pilate. And Jesus faces Pilate. Nope. John. This is why I need those cross references better written. I need to write it down after we do these studies. That way I look way smarter the next time we come around and do it. It's funny because I know exactly where on the page it is. I know it's bottom left of my Bible. I just couldn't remember which gospel I'm supposed to be looking at. But it says, Pilate sought to release him. And maybe that's not what I was looking for. Where is it? Okay, well, Enrique is usually the guy who looks these up for me while I'm talking. But regardless, it's Pilate sought to release him. But it says how the voices of the crowd prevailed. And that's the thing. As we live in a day and an age where, it's in Luke, of course. Same section of the page, the bottom left. They were insistent, demanding with loud voice he be crucified, and the voices of these men and the chief priests prevailed. And I would say that, too. Two good takeaways from this section of the Passion. One, that reminder that Barabbas, is just like us. Sinners, deserving of death, but Jesus took our cross. And how that should change our lives from here forward, knowing that. But also then an example of what not to do. Pontius Pilate, knowing he was a righteous man, knowing that they wanted to crucify him because of envy we got here in Mark 15:10, but the voices prevailed. Now, maybe you're a woman who knows she ought to go to women's Bible study tonight at Revival Church. And you don't have a legitimate excuse, but there's voices that come up with other excuses. And sometimes we let those voices prevail. There's voices that prevail all the time. We know what we ought to do, but then there's the voices. Now, hopefully you're not hearing real voices. But I think the enemy even has a way of just tossing out thoughts that we pick up and embrace ourselves. Because I am really tired. And there's a lot going on. And I can't leave the dog alone. The dog would get lonely. And, I watched Joe online this morning. And again, we're full of excuses. And if we allow the voices to prevail like Pontius Pilate did, we're going to find ourselves making mistakes and poor choices that we're going to regret later on. And so don't let the voices prevail. Let God's word prevail, right? Let God's word prevail in your heart and in your soul. And let God's word tell you what to do and where to go and how to spend and who to hang out with and all of those things. Let God's word prevail, not the voices. All these things, the world, the flesh, and the devil, they will all give you many great suggestions on how to spend your time. So, if you make the wrong choice, though, just remember that there's a man who already took your cross and he bore it for you. So you don't need to bear the shame, but we can definitely live in light of all he's done for us. No flies. It's the best. All right. God bless you guys. Have a great day, and I will see you guys tomorrow.